So let's hop right into it. We're doing these in somewhat alphabetical order, I guess. We're starting with Angel City right at the top. Angel City's got to love the beginning of a regular season because they're gonna start out every year on top until another team might come in and roll out with an A name. But letter A, they're on top right now. All zeros for all the teams looking ahead into 2023 regular season. No wins, no losses, no draws, none of that. But let's start with an overview of the team here for folks who maybe aren't too familiar themselves with Angel City. Head coach Freya Coombe, this is officially her second year with the franchise. She previously was with Gotham FC, formerly Sky Blue, since 2019. And they finished their 2022 season, their inaugural season, in 8th place in the regular season standings. And so we were looking at this team to really kind of tackle this offseason and really kind of steal some headlines. And when we were doing a little bit of our offseason grading on the show, we ended up giving them a C plus. When I wrote up my grades for .com, I gave them a C plus. And I asked you, Lisa, I was just like, hey, like, what do you think of Angel City? Like, do you have room for, bumping them higher or lower? And you sort of felt like this was a reasonable grade to give them in their offseason.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be a little bit reasonable because this is an Angel City team that came in last year in 2022 in their inaugural season, and they made a lot of noise with their people that were investing in them, their investors and ownerships of the team, what they were doing in LA with the community, with their signings in Kristen Press that they got some really big names. They made trades for Sydney LaRue last year. And in the offseason, they really didn't do too much. I mean, they made a lot of trades and a lot of money for a number 1 draft pick in the 2023 NWSL draft, and they end up going with Alyssa Thompson, the young 17-year-old out of high school, out of California, to keep her there. And I think that was really the biggest thing they did in the offseason, besides maybe a little bit of like-for-like trade in a Tyler Lucy, Merritt Mathias, and we'll talk about it, but really not too much. I mean, when you looked at 2022, Freya Coombe as a head coach, she didn't really rotate players a lot on her squad. She didn't. It was 15 players that saw minutes and saw time, and that was kind of it. Otherwise, if you were off that bubble of getting time to play, you weren't really going to get into that starting lineup and get significant minutes. The players that were playing 80, 90 minutes every single game. So the depth of this Angel City roster, I was maybe expecting to see it grow a little bit more in the offseason, just with the nature of injuries that have happened. I mean, they suffered a lot of injuries last year, the World Cup being this year. I was expecting a little bit more. So I give C plus for sure for this Angel City team in the offseason. But they did change their roster a little bit, right? Some changes happening on their roster list.
Oh, no, for sure. I think sort of looking at their offseason as a whole, kind of issuing those grades, it included things like how they fared in the free agency period. It included how they tackled the draft, how they tackled any sort of player departures, whether that was through trades or otherwise. But I think in terms of the free agency period, I wouldn't exactly consider them winners. I think we're looking at an Angel City side that has often, been out there talking about their franchise, how they want to be the first ever women's professional soccer franchise with $1 billion valuation, and going out there and sort of, priding themselves on these things and showing the worth and value and the importance of investing within, women's pro sports.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came to their free agency period, they didn't have a ton of those free agency signings. There were a lot of what we considered really top tier talent amongst that list of free agents. And when it came to signing out of free agency, they ended up going with Katie Johnson out of free agency, formerly with San Diego Wave, a California native, went to USC. So there's a lot of ties there, Mexican-American player. So they're very excited to have this player. A veteran player of the league at this point, has played with multiple teams, and they have her currently listed as sort of a midfielder, but slash forward option. So it's going to be interesting to see where Freya Coombe might actually utilize Katie Johnson in this
Yeah.
starting 11. But they also acquired Merritt Mathias out of North Carolina Courage.
Yeah, I think a big get for them defensively, because within that trade, there's Tyler Lucy, who is a forward and a defender for Freya Kuhn, but really played in the outside back role as a forward converted to a defender. That Lucy got sent to North Carolina. So pretty much a like for like trade there in Angel City, gaining a player in Merritt Mathias, a veteran of this league, can play in the outside back, really skilled 1v1 defender, and can also contribute in the attacking end of the field, getting crosses into the box and overloading sides to create man-up opportunities down the flank. Yeah, I think those are big signings, and what happened between Alyssa Thompson, Katie Johnson, and Merritt Mathias, nothing too crazy, right? I think the biggest one making the waves there is a player like Alyssa Thompson, but also we haven't seen her yet. So how is she going to adjust to the speed of the game and the play? I mean, she already has I believe it's 2 caps with the United States women's national team as the senior team. So this is a young player that can hopefully come in and really make a difference for Angel City. And although this isn't a roster signing or a trade or someone being drafted to this team, Angel City is also hoping to get back a couple players that were injured last year. And I think Sarah Gordon, defender, who played years with Chicago and was chosen in the expansion draft to go to Angel City on her injury. She hasn't played a single minute yet with Angel City, and that's someone in Sarah Gordon that I am expecting to make a big return for this Angel City side, and with Freya Kuhn to make this year a little different from what was last year for this Angel City side.
No, I'm with you. And listen, let's also just provide a little bit more clarity for folks in terms of really how Sarah Gordon is rated by other teams.
Oh yeah, she's
Sarah Gordon is a player that Chicago essentially engaged in a trade with Angel City for expansion roster protection.
Yes.
So this is a player that was part of a negotiation process in Chicago's offseason now two seasons ago, where they knew that there was going to be a double expansion with 2 California sides coming into the team, and they wanted to try to do something to ensure that they would protect their roster. There was also a ton of players who had requested trades to exit from Chicago's franchise just due to a lot of the negative headlines that were around the team at the time. So this was one of those players. So you're talking about a hometown local player to Chicago who's really sort of elevated her game and developed over the course of her experience within NWSL specifically, has never left this league to play outside internationally, and eventually raised her profile enough and became a really good center back in this league, to the point where Angel City was like, yes, this is a player that we will talk to you and negotiate with you about to help build up around our roster. And so there was a lot of excitement, I think, in getting this caliber of player to Angel City. But then she picked up, the ACL injury over the course of a preseason with them just before their inaugural season. So I'm almost with you on where I think there's going to be a lot of people who get reminded about Sarah Gordon.
Yeah. I think people forgot, honestly, especially because the way Angel City came into the league as an expansion team and with a lot of bells and whistles, I'm going to be honest. And Sarah Gordon is a huge bell, a giant whistle. And because people didn't see her last year in a year that had a lot of change, especially for Angel City, I think some people forgot about her. And man, are they going to be shocked when they see her take the pitch, because Sarah Gordon is an amazing defender. I mean, she was an Iron Woman for Chicago. She's an athlete through and through. Yeah, she's impressive to watch. So I want to add her to the list for Angel City as someone that they're kind of bulking up their roster, even though she's already been there.
Yeah, for sure. I think when we're talking about a team that needs to bulk up their roster in certain areas, I mean, you also have to sort of look at what that means in terms of who they lost. So we're talking a little bit about maybe the defensive shape in the back line for this team when we're talking about Sarah Gordon, but they also lost a couple players in trades. Tyler Lucy to North Carolina Courage, Akari Recaro to Chicago, and these were players that kind of became reliable, essential players for Coombe in their inaugural season. Kari Recaro, someone who has been in this league for quite some time, has played with multiple teams at this point in her career, but entered the league as a defending prospect, center back out of Notre Dame, and has sort of moved her way up further up the pitch, depending on which team she has been a part of. And Tyler Lucy, an attacking option that they engaged in a trade with Portland Thorns. Again, they were making all these deals with teams ahead of the expansion draft. And then we see Tyler Lucy get kind of converted into sort of a wingback for Angel City, but no longer going to be with Los Angeles, now going to enter 2023 with new clubs. Are these going to be huge shoes to fill, or do you think sort of how the roster is at this point, they'll have players who'll be able to slot in pretty seamlessly?
I think for the Tyler Lucy loss, it's a like for like trade in Merritt Mathias. You're going to get maybe even a little bit better out of that, just because Mathias is a true defender and a wing back in that position. I think losing a player like Kerry Recaro in the midfield for Angel City is going to be a big loss. I mean, as I mentioned, Angel City didn't really rotate their midfield a lot. It was the same players that were in there consistently week in and week out in their 4-3-3 formation. And Kerry Recaro, one of those players. She didn't score any goals in the league up until last year, and then she had 4 goals for Angel City. Just a big contributor on the pitch. I think a big personality as well in terms of leadership and what she brings in that sense. But I know we'll get to Chicago very shortly to talk about that team in their preview, but the trade for Kerry Recaro to go to Chicago in exchange for a little bit of money, or allocation money, was much better for Chicago than it was for Angel City to lose this type of player. I think Angel City might struggle a bit in the midfield this year.
I don't think that's an unfair statement to say. And I chuckle only because I think we were talking about this team last year during their inaugural seasons, and we had talked about that middle third needing a little bit of a boost, needing a little bit of help. And now as they're approaching their regular season, we're talking about one of their midfielders who performed better for them is no longer part of the team. But we'll take a deeper look into some of the personnel that are a part of this team as the regular season approaches.